For everyone, for anyone who's new and hasn't tuned in previously, this is not an office number. This is my personal, my private cell phone number, and I answer questions if you have questions that you're interested. You can call me at any time with a hair color question, and it doesn't matter what brand of color you use, because as most of us realize already, hair color is hair color is hair color. It reacts the same no matter where you are in the world. Lisa, as soon as we have the dates and the locations, I will let you, I will let everyone know how it's going to be. Whoops. Oh, it's going way too fast already. Okay, what is, it's got to be pretty close to time right now. Let me shrink this for 1 second. Yep. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. All right, it's time to get going. Here we go. First of all, everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for attending this webinar. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you some swatches. I'm going to show you what happens when products are mixed together. And I'm going to explain how we get to the percentage of ammonia that's in hair coloring, what's the different amounts in different ones, the different alkalizers that we use, all kinds of interesting, well, for me, interesting information. So let's start with, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the 3 different types of alkalizers, what they provide, how effective each of them is, the amount used in hair color products, and there's a difference between free ammonia and buffered ammonia. I'll explain. And I will also talk about the substitute for ammonia. And then I'm going to show you a bunch of formulas that I have manipulated to show you what happens when you change the amount of ammonia in a hair color. Oh, by the way, at any time, if anyone has any questions whatsoever, go ahead and ask them. Blue, yes. All of the webinars that I do, I record, and they're posted, both on YouTube and in the Worldwide Hair Colorists Association website and on the Chromastics website. They're everywhere. So the answer is yes. Let me go down to the next slide. Okay. Now, first of all, what you're looking here is the 3, I'm saying 2 other alkalizers, but it's because there are 2 alkalizers that we use in hair coloring and that are different than ammonia. But what I've done here is I've done a couple of things. First of all, I've shown you all the way to the far left over here. This is ammonium hydroxide, which is what we put into hair coloring. And there's chemically what it looks like. A nitrogen surrounded by 4 hydrogens, and one of them is active. So it's where we get the hydroxy ion that we need for alkalinity. This center one here is ethanolamine. You also know it as MEA. And look at the difference in size between an ammonia molecule and the size of a ethanolamine or MEA molecule. And then look over here, and this is the alkalizer that I use in deposit-only colors. It's called amino methylpropanol. And look at how large it is. Huge compared to, it is almost, well, it's more than double, but not quite 3 times the size of ammonia. And it is, what, 30% bigger than the ethanolamine molecule. And this plays a part later on, which I'll explain. It has to do with the catalyzation of peroxide and lightning ability. I think I've said it already, but at any time, if anyone has questions, ask them at any time. Sarah asked the question, what does she say? At some point, can you explain to me what it means when a bleach states it is ammonia free? Is it more damaging or not? I'll tell you right now. Most of us make an ammonia free. It doesn't contain ammonium persulfate, so you can call it ammonia free. However, the damage factor, even when you're using powder lightener, is still a function of peroxide. The majority of damage in hair coloring does not come from the pH or the product, whether it's a powder lightener or a cream lightener or a hair color. The majority of the damage in hair comes from peroxide. And the higher the volume of peroxide, the higher the amount of damage. But Sarah, hopefully you copied my telephone number in the beginning, but anytime you want to call me, just go ahead and call me and I will immediately return your call if I don't pick up, and we can chat as much as you want. Oh, that's Vincent Balducci said AMP would not be suitable for permanent hair color, that's amino methylpropanol, due to its size and inability to catalyze peroxide. That is correct. As a matter of fact, you jumped way ahead of me in this one. So now, on the manipulating, the alkalizers are necessary to produce the alkaline pH, which swells the hair and allows the dye to penetrate. Ammonium hydroxide and ethanolamine work with the peroxide to produce lightening. Amino methylpropanol is not very effective for lightening, which is just exactly what Vincent said a couple seconds ago. The alkalizer most popular and most effective per concentration is ammonium hydroxide, ammonia. This means that you can use less ammonia in a tube of color and get the result that you want than when you substitute something else. Now, generally, ammonia is supplied in the form of ammonium hydroxide, and it is supplied in these, we buy it in bulk, manufacturers buy it in bulk. And then it's diluted to a much lower amount when added to the hair color mixture. As a matter of fact, when we purchase it at a 28% solution. Now, obviously, hair color does not have a 28%. It doesn't contain 28% ammonia, but this is the form that we buy it at from the manufacturers of ammonium hydroxide. Then when we add a very small amount of it to the hair coloring mixture, it dilutes it down to a much lower percentage. That's why we all use the 28%, but we put a very small amount into color, and it becomes much less. Hair color mixtures generally have an ammonia content of approximately 1 to 4%. Now, if it has as high as 4%, anywhere from 3 to 4%, it's a high lift color. And you use them very sparingly, because the higher the amount of free ammonia in the hair color, the more catalyzation of the peroxide and the more damage it does to the hair. Most hair color has approximately 1% or less of ammonia when you apply it to the hair. And I know some of you are going to ask how. here's the way it actually comes about. Now, in a typical formula, if we're making hair color, we'll and I'm making a bunch of tubes of hair color, and what I do is I start out with 80 milliliters of 28% peroxide, which means I have a total of 22.4 milliliters of ammonia. Now, you divide that by 1,000 because this is the amount that when we're making it, if I'm making 1,000 ml, then I use 80 mLs of 28%. Now, when you divide it by 1,000, it becomes 0.22, decimal point 0.22. This means the decimal point, the first zero, if it was a 2, it would be 20%. But here, the 2 is the second number, so therefore it's 2.2%. So this is actually 22 1,000ths per milliliter. Now, when you mix hair color with peroxide, you dilute it again. And if you're mixing it in equal amounts, then what happens is that you divide that 0.022 by 2, because it's equal parts of peroxide, and this gives you a final ammonia content when it hits your hair of approximately 1%. That's the math, and that's how it comes about. I know it's confusing, but you know me. Oh, what did Vincent just write? He said back in the day, he was using ammonium-free perm made with MEA. Oh, wow. And after the second perm, the hair felt disgusting and was breaking. We never knew why. Now we know it's the MEA buildup. Yeah, fascinating. I think everyone saw that. Fascinating piece of information. Now, the ammonia, when we put ammonia into hair color, we do two things. We put it in as a buffered ammonia, which means it's attached to a fatty acid, and this maintains the constant pH of the product. But the free ammonia is what facilitates the effective lightening by the hydrogen peroxide. So the higher the amount of free ammonia, the higher the lightening action of the peroxide and the more damage that it does. Now, here's a fascinating piece of information. Ammonia can be buffered for use in demi-permanent and deposit-only colors, and it is very effective. Unfortunately, because it has a strong odor, and the clients always associate smell with damage, it is not generally used. Now, we did used to use this in products a long, long time ago, way back when in the 50s and 60s, but all of those products have gone away now. Now, when you substitute and you use ethanolamine, which is the substitute that's used most commonly for ammonia in lightening colors. However, the problem with it is that the ethanolamine is less effective and requires higher concentrations for lightening. So if you have two hair color mixtures, one made with ammonia mixed with 20 volume peroxide, and one made with MEA or ethanolamine and mixed with 20 volume peroxide. Generally, well, not generally, almost always, the ammonia product will lighten the hair approximately 2 levels. However, when you substitute ethanolamine or MEA for the ammonia, and mix it with 20 volume developer, you generally have to increase the amount of ethanolamine up to 8%, and it only lightens a maximum of 1.5 levels. So you get a much more effective lightening with much less product in the hair. Where's my, here it is. Now, if you lower the amount of ammonia, you can still achieve full deposit of color, but with less lightening, even though you're using 20 volume developer. Now, many of you know that I often talk about making a super glaze, which is equal parts of permanent and deposit only color. I'll briefly talk about it a little bit later on when you see some of the examples that I've created. Now, when you mix permanent color with deposit only color, look here, permanent color has generally about 1%. It can be as high as 1.2%. It can be a little bit higher than this, but generally it's always in the 1% range. Level 10 colors will have about 1.2%. Level 4 colors, or level 4, 3s and 2s will have less than that, and then of course deposit only colors have 0. So right here, look here, we have permanent colors 1%, and then you have deposit only colors, which is 0% of ammonia. If you mix 45 grams of permanent color with 15 grams of deposit only color, you drop the ammonia content down to 0.75, which means 0.75%. Now, if you mix up permanent color in equal parts with deposit only, you cut your ammonia content down to just half, which is half of a percentage point. And this is what I'm talking about when I say a super glaze, because I mix together a permanent color and a deposit only color to cut the ammonia content in half, but still get full lightening, still get full deposit of color. I'll explain why in a second. And then you also have this fourth one when you want to cut way down on your ammonia content, and you use only 15 grams of permanent color and 45 grams of deposit only color, and you end up with just 0.25%. These are approximates. They're off by a fraction, but they're approximates. Now, all of this will not work if you're using a demi that has ethanolamine. This will not work. It has to use aminomethylpropanol. Otherwise, all bets are off. Now, I'm going to show you a bunch of slides. And the slides that I'm going to show you, whoops, I jumped ahead by mistake. The slide, everything that I'm going to show you from this point is hair that is on 100% white hair. It's natural and it has not been bleached. And the second one, the second swatch that you're going to see everything on is a 50% medium brown and 50% white. And this is also virgin hair. So you're going to see all of the formulas on both of these types of hair. Danielle asked me a question. She said, is that shades? I don't know what you're asking me. Is what shades? What if the demi is a combo of, once again, I don't know what you mean. Lisa, you're asking me, what if the demi is a combo of new and AMP? I don't understand. You'll have to tell me what it is you're talking about there. I don't understand the question exactly. Anyway, here's the first two swatches. So now let me start with permanent 6N on white hair. This is what it looks like, using 20 volume developer for 35 minutes. Now here is the same 6N put on that second swatch, which is the salt and pepper swatch. Same thing, 20 volume, 35 minutes. Now let me show you, this was both, this is permanent. Now let me show you, why did it skip? Oh, wait a minute, it skipped a slide. Oh, somebody's at my door. I don't know why it skipped a slide, but these two swatches here on the right are the deposit only 6N on 20, and notice it's almost identical to the permanent 6N, but look at the salt and pepper swatch. This swatch is deeper than the salt and pepper swatch that we started with, and it's also deeper than this mixed, than this permanent one that we used 6N on the salt and pepper hair. Now, why is it deeper, and why does it look less gold? Because what did, by putting 6N for 35 minutes on salt and pepper hair, I lightened the hair a little bit. So I started pulling gold. Eventually I would start pulling a real strong orangey gold. But here, because it's a deposit only and a true deposit only, all it did was it added 6N on top of both the white and the dark hair. And consequently, it looks darker than the original swatch. Now here, what I've done is I've taken, here's the 6N permanent and the 6N deposit only. And then what I've done is I put them on 3 white swatches, but I changed the formulas. This first one is the formula where I have used only 15 grams of the deposit only and 45 grams of the permanent. The second swatch, you can see, is where I did equal parts, which is one of my favorite things in the world to do on clients, is a super glaze. So it's equal parts permanent and deposit only, processed for 20 minutes at 35 volume. And now look at the third swatch, which is primarily deposit only and just a small amount of 6N. Now let's look at these 3 swatches carefully. When I did 15%, when I did 15 grams of the deposit 6N, and I did 45 grams of the permanent 6N, you can see that it is almost identical. It is just a hair deeper, but almost identical to the permanent color all by itself on the salt and pepper hair. But now look at over here, look at the super glaze. This one, what has happened is I have lightened the original medium brown by half of a level, but it's not brassy. And what I've done is I have done full deposit of color on the white hair. So what I have here is, by doing a super glaze, is I have put together a swatch that is still the same level as the natural hair color, approximately a light brown, but, excuse me, a medium brown. But now what I've done is I've blended all of the white, it has become blonde, into that swatch. But now look at the third swatch, where I used primarily deposit only. Now it's darker. It's darker than the original swatch. Why? Because I have cut way back on the lightening ability and I'm still getting full deposit. So what I end up with is a much darker swatch. Now let me go back one. Just a second here. Oops, go back. Oh, what is going on here? There we go. Now, look at these three swatches again, where I did the formula on the 100% white hair. Notice that the middle swatch, which is the super glaze formula, which is equal parts of deposit only and permanent hair color, you have probably the most perfect 6N, dark natural blonde that you can see on white hair. But look over here, the one that uses just a small amount of permanent and primarily deposit only is darker than this one. Now, here's the second reason why deposit only colors and demis, well, deposit only colors are darker than the natural when you mix them with a little bit of ammonia. In order to create a deposit only color with no ammonia and no ethanolamine, you have to increase the dye concentration to get the same level, to get the level you want to achieve. So in order to create a dark neutral blonde, I had to increase the amount of dye. So if I look over here, if permanent color and deposit only color, this swatch has more dye in it because we weren't able to develop it fully because there was no ammonia. Because one of the other things that ammonia does is it allows for better dye development. So that's also why you're maintaining the amount of deposit, even though you're mixing the colors. And so even though you have a bleaching action, you're still getting the full deposit. Once again, these are the formulas that I used. And once again, it will not work if you're using ethanolamine or MEA. Now, let me show you now red swatches. So here is permanent red-orange on white hair, this one, 20 volume, 35 minutes, and permanent red-orange on salt and pepper hair, once again, virgin hair. Notice that the red-orange has colored both the deposit, the salt and the pepper. However, it has also lightened the medium brown slightly. Now let's look at the same two colors. This is deposit only. Now look at deposit only on white hair. It looks almost the same as the other one. I'll show them all to you together in a second. But now look at it on deposit only. This was actually a little bit deeper than the other one. Why? Because we had no lightning action. So now let me show you side by side. Now look at the brown hair here and the brown hair over here. This is deeper. And the reason it's deeper is because the permanent one had lightning action. So it lightened and made it red. But now look what happens when we use the formulas. First of all, on the white hair, and these are the same formulas as the last time, only I've substituted red-orange instead of neutral. And look at the swatch where we're using primarily red and just a little bit of deposit only. Looks great. Look at the one where we do equal parts. It is almost a perfect match for the other two. And now look at over here where we're doing primarily just the deposit red orange. It is a little bit deeper. It's a little tiny bit deeper than the other two. And where all of this is going to become very prevalent or very obvious is when we look at the salt and pepper swatches. So now when you look at the salt and pepper swatch, mixing the two of them together, here, very little, so it's a little bit deeper. Oh, excuse me, this is a little bit lighter. Here's the mix, and the one that's darkest of all is the one that has the least amount of ammoniated color in it. We have a question, and the first question is there a chart that shows which alkalizer each brand uses? No, Starlet, you have to just turn the tube around or look at the packaging, and it will say either ammonium hydroxide on the tube, or it will say ethanol amine, or it will say amino methyl propanol. One of those three names will be on it. Just look at your tube of color. Sarah asked, why not use 10 volume instead of 20 volume for deposit only 6N swatch? The only reason I did it on with these is because I wanted everything to be consistent when using. Normally, you would only mix deposit only color with 10 volume. You are correct. The reason I did 20 was just to keep consistency in all of the swatches. Let me see, do we have Trey Elkin says, is there a treatment that can be applied to the hair to remove or neutralize MEA? Unfortunately, I'm unaware of it. If somebody knows it, if somebody knows what it is, I'd be more than happy to give that information, but just rigorous shampooing after you apply a color will do it. Have you heard of color lines using sodium hydroxide? I have not, Vincent. That's a fascinating piece of information. Let me know who it is, and I will research it. So Jamal says, I wondered why major manufacturers use MEA in their demis and Chromastics does not. Does this mean that they use MEA to help develop the color and Chromastics demi uses a heavier dye load to compensate? The answer is yes and yes. I use a heavier dye load to compensate for the lack of ethanolamine, but also because you have to use so much more ethanolamine to create the pH that you want. And even though you're mixing it, if you're using MEA in your deposit only, it will lighten the hair. It always lightens the hair. And everyone has seen this when the color fades from the hair. What if the demi is an MEA and AMP combination? Would this work? No, because as soon as you put MEA in it, it does allow you to put in less dye and develop it. However, what it also does is it gives you lightning action, which you don't want. Let me back up here. Right, okay, so now let me show you. Now I'm going to show you something a little unusual here. What I've done here is again it jumps. What I've done here is I have taken permanent 8N on white hair with 20 volume. Oh, this is the missing slide from way up top. Somehow I got it way down here. It just ignored this slide, this slide. Now, look here at deposit only color. So first of all, deposit only color 8N on white hair, 20 volume, 35 minutes. Deposit only on medium brown hair, right? What is going on here? My machine is going crazy. I don't know what's happening. Oh, excuse me. My mistake. What I've done here is now I've switched to a light neutral blonde instead of using the dark neutral blonde that I was using before. And once again, I applied it to first on the permanent color, then the deposit only color, and then the combination on white hair. And look over here at the combination on white hair. This is an important one. The middle slide is the one that most correctly mimics the permanent 8N and the deposit only. This is the one that most correctly mimics it. But look at the one that's deposit only. It's a little bit deeper than what you want, than the original light neutral blonde. Here's the same thing on the salt and pepper hair. But now if you look at it here, you'll notice that in the middle one, that is the one that is the least lightning action. It's a little difficult to see in these particular swatches, but here you can see that this is a little bit more golden than this, because this is the deposit only, so it's a warm brown, basically, is what you created, warm brown. But here what you can see is in the center swatch, which is the equal parts, what I've done is I've created a color that is as close to the natural medium brown, but I've covered all of the white hair to a light blonde shade and do not have brass. There's no red or gold appearing in this swatch. That's why I like this so very much. Once again, those were the formulas. Now, this is something very different. Here's what I've done. Sometimes there was one particular client that I was taking care of in the salon, and I didn't use this on her. I'll show you some. I used a light golden brown on her. But look here at this. This is permanent deposit only 8N with 20 volume for 35 minutes. But now look at this one. I added 4 grams of XL Super. Now, when you add 4 grams of XL Super, yes, you're adding 4 grams of a product that has a higher ammonia content. However, you're only adding 4 grams into this 60-gram mixture. So this dilutes down to a tiny, tiny fraction of ammonia, less than 1%. And look what it did. It gave you a much full 100% coverage, a little tiny speck deeper on white hair. Now look at this next one, which is, well, again, I jumped. Here I used the regular deposit only 6N, and here I did deposit only 6N with 4 grams of XL Super. Look at how much deeper this color result is by putting a tiny little amount of XL Super into the formula. And you don't compensate with any extra developer. You just only use 60 grams. And then the red one. And look at how much redder and more vibrant it becomes by simply putting the 4 grams. So anytime you're working on a client and you want to use deposit only color and you want to have a very, very long lasting color that will stay in the hair for months, all you have to do is use whatever deposit only color you want, put 4 grams of XL Super in it, and kaboom, there you are. Let me see if we have any more questions here. Sarah said, why use superglazed formulas and choosing permanent versus deposit only? The reason is because it allows you to use 20 volume developer, Sarah, and get your 20 volume will only give you one level of lightening instead of two. And it gives you 100%, it gives you full deposit of color. So you end up staying at the natural color or one level lighter, no brass, but allows you to use blondes on brown hair. Trey asks, what's the deal with the so-called pH adjusters added to permanent color, supposedly converting them to acidic demis? Most likely, now I don't know what's in them. My friend Luke Jardin from California sent me some pictures, and I forget what it was that they were using to alkalize it. It was some sort of a it has to be something that's acidic in order to neutralize it. I don't know what they are. If they work, it would be great, you know, another new thing to use in the salon, but I'm unaware of it. Sarah asks, are all super glazed formulas made with 20 volume, or would you still use 10? Well, you won't. The reason that I use 20 volume, Sarah, is because with 20 volume, you're only getting one level of lightening. So because of the combination of the two. You can use 10 volume, but you would then get an even darker color result. Deborah asked, does the super glaze have the same lasting power as a permanent color? The answer is yes. How do we determine what ratio permanent to deposit only to achieve this? 50-50 is my go-to choice. You can make mild adjustments anywhere you want. Danielle asks, XL Super is a high lift, that it has a 3% ammonia content. But because you're using only 4 grams, the ammonia is almost negligible. Citric and phosphoric acid. So what's that the answer to? Oh, the pH adjusters? Well, then it makes perfect sense because phosphoric acid would is exactly how you would neutralize permanent color. The problem is how I imagine it's for one brand of color, because if you are using a color brand like Chromastics, where we vary the amount of ammonia by the level, then you would have to also vary the amount of phosphoric acid to neutralize it by varying amounts. And I don't know how you go about that. I don't know. Richard asked, do you gain anything by using 20 volume developer with deposit only color, which usually calls for 10? Two things. You'll get a faster dye development, and it might get just a tiny speck deeper over the course of the same period of time that you were doing. So it'll be just a little bit deeper, slightly deeper color. I use 10 volume when I'm using deposit only. Sarah, I never refresh hair with anything that contains permanent color. I only refresh hair with deposit only colors or liquid glazes, both of which do not contain ethanolamine. I never, ever refresh anything and any color with a permanent formula, because you will continue to damage the hair and get a lightening effect on it. Now, let me see. Let me go back up to the original slide that I had in here. Let me go all the way back up here to the top. Now, and let me put this full screen again, remember, if you have questions, there are the questions. There's the number to call. You can talk to me at any time. If I don't pick up, I will call you back within minutes, assuming that I'm awake, and assuming that your number is not blocked. But this was pretty brief today. And if you want to send me any questions, there's my email address. If you want to, anything at all, there it is. It is now 1:45, so this is one of the shorter ones. Some of our webinars go on for an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. This one is just 45 minutes. But unless there are any more questions, my friends, thank you, Jacqueline. Do you have a formula, a go-to formula for a clear glaze? Oh, Richard, yeah, it's very simple. You can take a clear glaze, you can take the liquid clear from Chromastics liquid shades and mix it with just equal parts with warm water, apply it to the hair, just leave it on 10 minutes and rinse it off, and you get a spectacular high gloss finish to the hair. You don't have to put any peroxide in it to get that beautiful effect. The answer is, Stephanie, no, I do not refresh color with super glaze. I only use deposit only. Guys, thank you for tuning in. There were 63 of us for the full webinar. Thank you. And once again, this will be up and posted in just a couple of days, and you'll be able to re-see it, revisit it as many times as you like. Thank you, and have an amazing day.